And hello, everyone, and welcome back to our Senate election videos where we take a look at the Senate races going on across America in 2026. And today we are taking a look at the volunteer state, the state of Tennessee, and a seat currently held by the Republican Party. And the current U.S. Senator is Bill Hagerty. Mr. Hagerty is in his first term. In 2020, Bill Hagerty won election to this open Senate seat with a margin of victory of just over 27%. In 2020, Donald Trump won the state of Tennessee with over 23%. And in 2024, Donald Trump again won the state of Tennessee with a margin of victory of just under 30%. So, and that was third time Trump had won Tennessee. So a very reliably Republican state from the outside looking in, looking at those margins. Let's take a look at the two nominees. The Democratic nominee is the 2020 nominee again in a rematch from a 2020 campaign. It is Marquita Bradshaw. Miss Bradshaw is an environmental organizer and activist from Memphis, Tennessee. And she has really centered her campaign, as she did in 2020, on health care, jobs, and environmental justice. Miss Bradshaw grew up in a part of Memphis that suffered from pollution and toxic dumping and really makes environmental justice and access to good health care centerpieces of her campaign. And in 2020, obviously she did not win, but she received over 1 million votes, and she was the first African American woman nominated by Tennessee um, voters as a nominee for a major political party for a statewide office. The Republican nominee is the current incumbent, Senator Bill Hagerty. Mr. Hagerty in the Senate has built up a reliably conservative voting record and voted consistently with Donald Trump and Donald Trump's agenda, and also prior to Trump's return, was a real vocal advocate of the MAGA wing of the Republican Party. Prior to serving in the Senate, Mr. Hagerty served as the United States ambassador to Japan, and notably during his first term in the Senate, when Rahm Emanuel was nominated to be ambassador, he helped break the logjam and get Emanuel through as ambassador. So that was one of the few times that Hagerty broke away and supported some bipartisan um, maneuvering. Um, Hagerty, prior to being ambassador, was a Republican fundraiser and financier and supported Bill Haslam, Jeb Bush, Mitt Romney, John McCain, those type of Republicans. But when it became clear that Donald Trump was going to be taking over the Republican Party, Bill Hagerty changed his tune and became a very vocal supporter of Donald Trump. And like a lot of Republicans, he gave in to that evil that was taking over the Republican Party and was cowardly. Instead of fighting it, he gave in. Let's take a look at the two primaries. About 65% of Tennessee voters in the primaries cast ballots for the Republican Party, and about 34% cast ballots for the Democratic Party. The Republican Party, obviously in Tennessee, as you could see by Hagerty and Trump's margins, is the dominant party. But Democrats made gains over their 2022 primary showing and actually increased in many areas across the state. Both parties had competitive primaries um, for high offices. The Democrats essentially all united around a single nominee for governor, and but the real action was down ballot in the Senate race. Um, Although Marsha Blackburn was expected to easily romp to victory in the Republican primary, her victory was a little underwhelming compared to the expectation, and she had to fight a little harder for it than would normally be expected. And Mr. Hagerty easily won his primary over just minimal opposition. Um, and in Tennessee, I will note that they hold local primaries in March and local general elections in August. So you had people that were casting ballots in their statewide primaries in August, but they were also voting on their general election for county offices in the same election. It's one of the few states that does it. They hold their, um, and it occurs on a Thursday, which is one big difference. And you had Democrats making gains in many places across the state, holding on to offices in places that you might not expect. Uh, Close to me, a Democrat won re-election to the county mayor's position by a just a handful of votes, and a Democrat also won re-election to a county clerk position. So shout out to those good Democrats and keeping rural Democratic hope alive. As I've always said on this platform, I make the Senate videos as unbiased as can. I don't hide my bias, but I try to give straight shooting on what I think's going to occur. Look, Tennessee once was the home of Bill Frist, Lamar Alexander, Bill Haslam, Howard Baker, and a more moderate form of Southern Republicanism, pragmatic. That Republican Party died. It began to show symptoms in 2010 when certain members of the Tea Party got elected to the congressional delegation. It became a terminal diagnosis in 2016 with the election of Donald Trump, and it flatlined in 2020 with the election of Bill Hagerty to the Senate. Um, Hagerty, even though I mentioned, had previously shown affinity to the Howard Baker, the Bill Frist type of republicanism, that's no longer the case. He smelt where the Tennessee Republican Party was going, and unless something dramatic happens, I don't see Miss Bradshaw being able to compete with Hagerty in this election. It's just the partisan nature of Tennessee at this moment. She might get closer than the 27% that Hagerty won by in 2020. She might bring that down to, a 24 or 22% margin of victory for Bill Hagerty. But there's going to be a significant drop off for Hagerty and his support just because it's the midterms. But Tennessee's partisan nature at this moment is not going to see a Democrat win statewide to the United States Senate. If a Democrat's going to get elected statewide in Tennessee, it's probably going to be as governor. And even that, I don't think is a realistic possibility at this moment. Tennessee is just very much in the beginning throes of what many southern states have had is its race to the right. For a long time, Tennessee had a tradition, as I said, of pragmatic republicanism. And as I said, that is no longer the case. Um, Tennessee had a Democratic governor as recently as 2010. When Phil Bredesen ran for re-election as governor in 2006, and I know that's 20 years ago as I'm filming this video, and there were people that were born that night and during Phil Bredesen's second term that will be able to vote in this election. I get that. But that is more recent than Georgia. That is more recent than Alabama. That is more recent than Florida. That is more recent than Texas and other southern states that have just lapped to the right at amazing speed. So, barring any unforeseen circumstances, uh, Bill Hagerty will be elected to a second term in the United States Senate. And I think it will be more of the same. He will continue to be a yes vote for Donald Trump's agenda. He will be continue to be a vote for this perverted vision of America that MAGA and the Republicans are promoting right now. So that's my belief. I will obviously, if something major changes and I see this race changing, I will come on here and give you an update. But at the moment, I see nothing that will prevent Hagerty from getting a second term.